Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Mohammed, for the opportunity just to offer a few reflections. As Mohammed mentioned, I worked within parts of the Australian government. I was an Australian High Commissioner at one stage, and I spent a few years with the World Bank, Washington, DC. Then I worked within the Victorian government in the Justice Department and in taxation policy areas. So data, I just became aware, I guess, over the decades of the importance of governments collecting information about their own countries. And I'll just run through a couple of quick examples that for some of you will be extremely basic, but for some who perhaps haven't reflected on the role of data in government, it might provide some illumination. The Australian Bureau of Statistics, many are aware, an agency of the Commonwealth Government. Many are not aware of the centrality of that agency in many areas of public policy, economic and social. Just to look at their homepage, which I've got up now. So they have population data, they have price data, gross domestic product, weekly earnings. Then just down the side column, building approvals, property price indexes, retail trade, every aspect of the economy, and increasingly over recent decades, aspects of social structure and well-being. This both informs the politics, it informs the agenda of what comes into people's consciousness and what people want to talk about or make proposals in, and it then informs the policy that developed. It gives hard data around which to build arguments, on which to base proposals. You're no longer just talking about what looks like a good idea, or what looks like it will affect a lot of people, or who might be disadvantaged. You can actually get numbers and get a picture on that. Let's go to another example. Did that screen change? Do you now have overcoming Indigenous disadvantage?
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So the Productivity Commission was given the task. Productivity Commission, another agency of the federal government. It doesn't have a remit to map the economy and society as a whole, as does the ABS. It specialises in particular topics, but nevertheless is absolutely data driven and has built up some enormous data sets over time, and the ability to refine those sets. It's not just a matter of getting in numbers, it's a matter of getting those numbers in the right way, asking the right questions to get in the numbers about the right sorts of things. And with Indigenous wellbeing in Australia, many will remember with the Millennium Development Goals internationally, in Australia that morphed into the COAG Indigenous wellbeing data. And the Productivity Commission were given the job. They assembled data across all areas of Indigenous life, and they reported on it annually. In some cases, Prime Ministers decided that it would be better to give a short, graphic, illustrated report to the people rather than give the people the numbers. It's usually when things weren't going so well. But a couple of years ago now, everybody took a step backwards and said that they'd used this data, but things weren't getting better quickly enough in key areas of life for Indigenous populations. So they came up with a new set of COAG targets. That's the Council for Australian Government targets, and headline indicators under those targets. So the numbers that will resonate with the people, as well as with the journalists and the politicians, to give them a sense of what's really going on in the communities. And when you look at what life expectancy, young child mortality, early childhood education, it took the Productivity Commission 10 years to build these data collection systems. You can't just go out and ask people about, say, early childhood education. You've got to know who to ask. You've got to have systems of information gathering. You've got to have information repositories. You've got to check the quality of the information. It's an enormous amount of work to get to this stage. But once you've got to this stage, you know whether Aboriginal life expectancy is going up or down, and whether it's getting better or worse in particular areas in relation to society as a whole. Young child mortality, again, you can break that up by geography, but by urban, regional, remote, by level of education, by proximity health services, etc. Not just so that we know more about it, but that we can see whether things are getting better or worse, and whether we need to put in more, change our policy, put in more resources, react in order to move closer to the agreed objectives. And if you look at the first little box, COAG targets, you'll see that over the most recent 12 months, 4 of those 7 very high level indicators, there's a tick, so things have got better. On 1 year 1 to 10 attendance, there's a cross. Right? So basically, Aboriginal school attendance from years 1 to 10 was worse now than it was 12 months ago. Well, there'd be a lag with the data, but as measured now, it's worse than it was as measured 12 months ago. And for 2 of them, 4.4 reading, writing, numeracy, 4.7 employment, it's mixed, because each of these high level categories, in fact, is composed of lots and lots of more detailed measures. So on 4.4 and 4.7, the balance of those measures is mixed, a number up, a number down. That's an example of making a difference to the lives of the people because of the effort, because of a political will, I guess, to go down this track to measure things. It means governments have got to put themselves on the line, and then the massive investment over a decade of expertise, economists, health policy people, Indigenous leaders who understand their communities, working together to put in the systems to gather that data, gather the analysis, and to report on it regularly. I'll just give one more example. Does that come up, a heading called Country Group of Birth?
No, not yet. Yes, yes.
Okay. This is from the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare. So this is the third agency I've talked about. It's the third Commonwealth government agency. It specialises on the health side of things. So I've just picked it out where they're looking at homelessness and the correlations between homelessness and country of birth. So they're only just moving into that area, but it's I can't see my full screen here. Actually, I'm
yes, moving. Yeah. You're doing fine. Yeah, keep going.
I can't read all the data anyhow.
Okay.
Basically, 7 out of 10 of the people homeless were born in Australia. Well, again, more data is needed to know, whether they're first generation Australians or been here for a while. In Southern and Eastern Europe, 5%, North Africa and Middle East, 4%. And typically, as you know, the proportion from that ethnic background is significantly higher than the proportion of those with those places of birth. But the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare look at all the social determinants of health, I guess. Our health is affected by our income, by our type of residence, by our interaction with the criminal law. And to do that, they've got to have the data. To understand the way the society is working, to understand the impact on different groups of society, then to share that with the political community and to inform policy, they need data sets that in this case, are more specialised than what the Australian Bureau of Statistics built up, just as the Productivity Commission got a more detailed data set built up over a decade, maintained over another decade on Indigenous health and wellbeing. So I thought I'd just go through those 3 examples of the recognition of the importance of data in these areas, then the investment of, well, political agreement that should be, the time and effort should be put into gathering that data, then the investment of expertise, stress over time to both to initially build, to describe, to design the data sets, to build the data sets, to maintain them, and then to analyse them, to put the resulting information out to the people and to the politicians and into the policy system. And absent those steps, Mohammed and friends, it's much harder for any government, from a local government in Australia to the Pacific Islands that I used to know well, to